AC/DC, the Beatles, Metallica, Tupac, Eminem, Chief Keef, Slipknot, Marilyn Manson. This is a rather eclectic mix of classic pop, gangster rap, heavy metal, rock and roll, blah, blah, blah. But the one thing they all have in common is that they've all been accused of inspiring everything from school shootings to serial killers to familicide. And I'm gonna warn you right now, I feel like a douchebag doing it, but this might be a bit graphic. I don't know. I see other people saying that, so I don't know if I'm supposed to do that. But yeah, violent. What the fuck is up, losers? I'm Whitey Wish. Today we're going to explore the most infamous cases of music being blamed for tragedy. Feel free to play a little game as we go and let me know which of these artists actually deserve blame, if any. Let's go. Now, I think today most of us probably roll our eyes. We've heard countless times throughout our lives how video games are to blame for people carrying out tragedies, but there was a time not even that long ago where people really truly believed that heavy metal music and later rap music was inspiring people to go out and do some fucked up shit. Because it's much easier for parents and schools and government officials to shift the blame off of themselves, because as we all know, they're perfect. So clearly it must be the evil artists who are poisoning their minds, not your shitty parenting and laws. But let's get going. First on our list is Metallica. In 2007, a 29-year-old dude in New Jersey smashed his mom's face with a barbell, ending her existence in the process, then broke on his motorcycle and drove around the neighborhood before he pulled up on an 11-year-old kid, shanked him, ended his existence too, then drove away on his bike. Police found him shortly after, and he was arrested and given 2 life sentences. But during the trial, he testified that Metallica's song Ronnie was actually written about him, because his name was also Ronnie. The court ignored him and locked him away for 50 years to stay, and so that was the end of that. He's not the only person on our list, though, who seems to think that artists are specifically writing songs for them. So maybe, if you're an artist out there, try to refrain from putting names in your music, because you might get the wrong kind of crazy out of that. Number 9 on the list is Tupac. In 1994, a teenager sniped a cop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, putting a swift end to his career and life. The kid told the cops that a Tupac song about shooting at cops was to blame and forced his weak little mind into acting irrationally. I was not able to see which song it was. All it said was that it was a Tupac song about killing cops. But if any of y'all know which song that is, please let me know down below. The kid was charged. He's been in prison since. He'll probably never get out. If you do anything like that to the police, they will never, ever let you out. That is a heinous crime in the eyes of the law, especially. They don't have any sympathy for anybody who would ever do anything to their buddies and friends and all that stuff. It's not that, murder is a good thing in any situation, because it's not. But you will especially be up shit creek if you do that to a cop. Now, our next contestant is one of the most well-known, in my opinion, one of my personal favorites, is Charles Manson and the Beatles. That's right. Charles Manson in the late 60s was accused of brainwashing his family and friends and deluding them into becoming crazed killers on his behalf. Now, Manson himself always denied it and always denied that the music made him do it. But during the trial, the lead prosecutor made the case repeatedly that Charlie was convinced that the Beatles were speaking to him through the White Album, telling him there was going to be a war, and specifically that the song Blackbird and Helter Skelter were discussing the Black Panther Party overthrowing the Hollywood elites and basically making all of the Hollywood stars their indentured servants. Anyway, long story short, Charlie believed he would be spared in the coming revolution, and during several nights of carnage, he slaughtered a handful of people and wrote Helter Skelter on the walls of the houses in blood. Well, he didn't. He was never even there. He was found guilty through conspiracy to commit because they claimed he made them and that the Beatles made him. So it was like a fucking 5-layer conspiracy of the Beatles telling Charlie to do it, Charlie telling them to do it, and them doing it. So I don't know if that would even be convicted in today's time, but it is what it is. It's a good story, I guess. It's not a good story. A bunch of people died, but yeah. Apparently, the prosecutors even tried to get John Lennon to testify in court that that's not what his songs were about. And the Beatles were not, in fact, sending messages to Charlie Manson. Anyway, he recently died after serving nearly 60 years consecutively in California prisons, and the only one person from his group who was, related to him in any way has ever been released, and that was after serving 50 years for her hand in the events. Number 7, Chief Keef. In 2013, a group of 3 Oklahoma teenagers cut short the life of another teen. Now, the kids themselves did not blame Chief Keef, unlike Charles. Their defense is that they were, quote, bored and decided it would be fun. which is not a good defense. Don't do that. That's not a defense. It's not a defense. It makes you look crazy. That's not a defense. Nobody's going to take pity on you for being bored. But upon checking the lead defendant James Edwards' Twitter, I'm not going to call it X. The other day I sent an X link to my mom, and she thought it was some kind of like adult website. And you can't call a website X without people associating it with adult websites. So that was a stupid name change. Anyway, they checked his Twitter and saw some violent tweets, which they assumed meant he had premeditated the murder. But in reality, it was actually quoting song lyrics of a Chief Keef song, actually multiple Chief Keef songs. So yeah, Chief Keef got blamed by the cops for those kids' action. Our next contestant is the new metal band Slipknot. In 2008 in South Africa, a kid named Nick, I don't remember his last name. I don't remember. It's Nick, N-I-C, like nicotine, Nick, took a katana to school. Oh no. And he used that katana to end the life of a classmate. And I'm sorry, but I gotta say, this seems more of an anime thing than a Slipknot thing. Because I've listened to some Slipknot, I've seen them live, and not one single song do they ever mention wielding a samurai sword. When he did the attack, he was wearing a mask that resembled Joey Jordison's mask, the drummer of Slipknot. A friend also testified that Nick was obsessed with Slipknot and made masks for each member of the group. And man, they have like 9 or more members. That is dedication, so you gotta give him credit for that. After that, South Africa made a huge push to keep heavy metal and Slipknot and all the others out of their nation. Up next, we have Marilyn Manson. Now, Marilyn Manson has been blamed for just about everything under the sun, but the big one, the crown jewel, was the Columbine shooting. In 1999, it was one of the very first incidents of that nature. It totally shocked everybody. People were outraged. They looked like normal kids for the most part. But according to kids at their school, both Eric and Dylan were obsessed with goth rocker Marilyn Manson. Now, I was a huge Manson fan as a kid. He was one of my favorites, and out of every artist mentioned so far, aside from the Beatles, he honestly has the least violent music in my opinion. So it's kind of silly that he gets as much fear and animosity as he does. But yeah, he gets a lot of hate, and he got an exceptional amount of hate after Columbine. He was banned from whole states. There were protesters outside of all of his shows. It was a strange time. He even had to cancel 5 of his shows after that. Just because, he said he did it out of respect for the deceased, but more than likely he was probably pressured to do so just to kind of let it die down a little bit before he got going. But yeah, very strange times. Unsurprisingly, is Eminem. Eminem blew everybody's mind when he first came out, mostly because it was scary for suburban white parents to have a white guy doing that type of music. But in 2009, a dude ended his wife and son's life with a knife. A little Eminem rhyme scheme there. Slashed at them both while shouting, "Here comes Satan, I'm the Antichrist, I'm gonna get you," which is kind of funny. Not in context, it's not funny, but it is kind of funny because out of all of Eminem music, to quote, all his songs, Kim included, basically anything off any album prior to Encore, these lyrics, the ones he shouted as he did the deed, were not from any Eminem song. So he himself said he was quoting Eminem as he did it. And he was wrong. Those aren't Eminem lyrics. They're not from anything, unless it was like a background audio, like ad-lib thing. But I wasn't able to find anything with those exact lyrics. Why wouldn't you quote Kim? Now bleed, bitch, bleed. That seems like the logical conclusion as to, what to blame. But our final contestant is probably one of the most infamous, or at least he was, Ricardo Ramirez, or Richard Ramirez, or Richie Ramirez, depending if you knew him well. The Night Stalker, as he was known in Los Angeles. He was a serial killer in the mid-'80s throughout Los Angeles and San Francisco. He was accused and convicted of over 13 assaults of the very worst type, you know what I mean, as well as 13 or more murders. He was known to break into people's houses in the middle of the night through open windows where he'd rob the houses of valuables, assault the women of all ages from 14 to 70, and end the lives of any man who might be in the house. Richard Ramirez was probably the biggest scumbag to ever live. But, that's kind of besides the point, obviously. Richard Ramirez was obsessed with AC/DC and just heavy metal music in general. He really believed that Satan was, speaking to him. He had, that dogma that Christians get where, I'm doing the Lord's work. But he thought he was doing Satan's work very, very, strictly. he believed that Satan was going to reward him for all of his heinous acts when he got to hell, and that he'd be like a prince of hell. And this is his own words. He really believed that. But if you don't know, AC/DC had a song called Night Prowler, Night Stalker, Night Prowler. And Richard Ramirez used to listen to that song pretty regularly as he was going to do his crimes in his little Walkman tape player. AC/DC was blamed for his heinous crime spree, and there are several reasons why. The first being, the song Night Prowler, which is really similar to Night Stalker, as we've discussed. The name given to him by the news outlets, which he didn't even pick the name, so it's weird that the news outlets picked a name so close to the song that he was kind of obsessed with at the time. But the biggest defining fact as to why AC/DC was kind of indicated in it was because during a home invasion, he went into somebody's house where he shot down 2 women in their 20s. Only one survived, and he left behind at the scene an AC/DC ball cap. Which is, that's a bad look. Angus Young himself actually addressed the situation, condemning Ramirez and obviously stating that the band had nothing to do with any sort of chicanery like that. But this is famous instances of artists being blamed for other people's violence. Let me know what you think below. Give me a little like, a sub. Much love. I'm Whitey Wish, signing off.